Hi there, join me in this video for some back garden bird photography. Thanks for joining me in this video, it's great to see you again. Now it's been a while since I've filmed a video from inside my bird hide here in the garden, so I thought because there's been lots of new subscribers to the channel, it's time to show you the facilities I've got here at home. Now behind me is a garden shed that I've converted into a bird hide by just poking a few holes through it to allow the camera to come out, and then over my left hand shoulder, which I'll show you in a moment, are all of my feeders, and I've got lots of perches there that I can change up quite quickly, so it's a really interesting place to photograph birds. And because I live out in the countryside, I get quite a good variety. Now just at the moment we're coming into winter, we're in the middle of autumn, so the bird numbers have dropped a little bit from where they were in the summer, but I still think that I'm going to have a great morning, and I know that I'm really going to enjoy my photography. I'm at the front of the hide now, and you can see the camera poking through the front of the shed through this hole that I've made. Inside there's a shelf, and the camera is resting on a bean bag to keep it nice and stable so I can get some really nice shots. To the right of the camera from inside is a perspex window, so I get a little bit more visibility. Now I have thought about replacing this perspex with some one-way glass so I can take photographs through the glass, but I do find that a lot of times during the year, especially when it's cold, the glass gets condensation on it, especially when you're sitting inside, and so that doesn't really help, and it would really limit the view that you get. So it might be okay in the summer, but at this time of year I don't know how effective it would be. This is my feeder setup. To the right hand side of me there's quite a large hedge, so this makes the birds feel safe. And then over here are my feeders, so I've got a feeding table where I put mixed seed, then some feeding tubes, so in there are some sunflower hearts and some Niger seeds, and then here I've put this morning a branch from the apple tree. Now it did have an apple on it when I moved it here, but as I was attaching it the apple fell off unfortunately. But what I have done as well is I've trimmed a few of the leaves off, because if there were too many leaves it starts to hide the birds, so I've made it a little bit more attractive, and I attach it to metal posts using Velcro strips, so it's really easy and quick to remove that. Then I've got a bit of old branch here that they can land on, and then to my right there's a big tree trunk, and that's got holes poked in it so I can push suet pellets into that, and that attracts a woodpecker. Then I've reintroduced another tree stump that's got a really attractive hole in it through this gap, and to the right there is an old gate which makes for an attractive perch. Now at all points on here, out of sight, I've put some seed so it attracts the birds to the top of these perches. So in the top of the gate there's a little trough behind the top of it, and then inside the hole in the front of that tree trunk just there I put some more seed, so hopefully this should attract all the birds and I should get some good photographs. Usually after doing things outside the bird hide it does take a little while for the birds to start to arrive on the feeders, but there are some birds that are quite brave, so within maybe 5 minutes there will be some birds visiting, and already I can see some blue tits on the feeders after a very short amount of time. So the longer that there is no activity outside, the more they start to feel safe and the more varieties you start to get on the feeders. If this is your first time visiting the channel, you can do me a really big favour by clicking the like, subscribe and the bell notifications. It really helps me out, but it makes sure that you don't miss out on any future photographic content. Also, don't forget that I've got a Teespring store where you can go and check out some merchandise. What I'm really looking for is photographs of the birds on the natural perches. It's not really as pleasing to me to see birds on feeding tubes or on the feeding table that is basically a plastic lid off a feed bin. So when they land on one of the natural perches, it just makes them look more like they're in their normal environment, and it's just more pleasing. Inside the hide is really comfortable. Over to my left hand side is the shelf with the camera on that's looking out over the feeders. Over my right hand shoulder is where I store all of the bird food, so I've got some big 50-litre bins that keep all the food in, so I buy it in bulk so it's cheaper. Then I've got a really nice comfy chair. I won't show you the rest of the hide because it's quite a mess at the moment, because it's become a bit of a storage area for garden furniture and chicken feed and all kinds of other things, so there's only just about enough room for me to sit where I am at the moment, but it's still fine. So it's a great place to sit, and one thing I would say, if you're going to do this thing yourself, make sure that you are comfortable, because you will be sat in the bird hide for quite a long period of time, because bird photography does take a lot of patience. So this is quite a comfy chair. I've got a fleece lining and an extra pad underneath it, so I can sit here quite happily for a couple of hours without worrying and really enjoy my photography. Certain birds are much more sensitive to camera movement than others. Things like your small tits, like blue tits and great tits, or robin for instance, aren't that bothered if you move the camera about fairly quickly. But other species, things like magpies, collared doves, and especially jackdaws, really do get bothered by the slightest movement of the camera, so you either have to move the camera very slowly or just happen on luck that you're pointing in the right direction when they land. This morning is quite tricky for lots of reasons. It's very sunny, but where the hide is situated, there's a oak tree that's grown up quite large from when I first put the hide here, and there's still quite a few leaves on it, so that's casting shadow over where the perches is, but the background is in full sun, so that makes things quite difficult, and there are quite a lot of quite dark shadow areas, so I'm having to keep the ISO still quite high for the shadow areas. Then there aren't a lot of variety of birds about at the moment. Mostly it's been chaffinch this morning. I have seen some blue tit, great tit, a robin, and there's a coal tit about as well, but I've not really photographed that. Then, to make matters worse, I've just had a visit from a sparrowhawk. Now, it flew through and scared all the birds off, but it didn't land anywhere. In the past it has landed on one of the perches and I've got some photographs of it, but no luck with that either today. So it's just a case of being patient and hoping something happens. A sparrowhawk visit is not my favourite thing when I'm sat in the hide, because it raises the alert level of the birds and you don't see any of them for about 10 or 15 minutes before they feel safe to come back to the feeders. The only time it's really any use is if you manage to get a photograph of it, but it wasn't playing today. I've just had a buzzard land in the hedge line a little bit further along behind the feeders. Now, it was covered by a lot of branches, so I couldn't really see it very clearly, but I picked out a few moments where I could see its head and its eye and got some photographs of that, so I'll show you those now. I've been a little bit frustrated this morning that no birds have landed on the piece of apple tree that I put up as a perch. So I've just been out and I've spun the feeders around to make it closer to that branch, hopefully to encourage the birds to land on it. And as I came back into the hide, the sparrowhawk flew back in, but this time it did land in a place where I managed to get a photograph of it. Now it wasn't full body like I've got before, but it was upper body and its eye. So at least that's made its visit worthwhile, even though now I'm going to have to probably wait for another 10 or 15 minutes for the birds to return. What I'll do now is I'll leave you with some of my best photographs from the morning, and don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video to see my favourite. Well, despite all of my best intentions, this perch here that is right next to the feeders has not had a single bird land on it this morning, and I don't think I've ever had such an unsuccessful perch. It could be that this leaf here that I left on is just a little bit off-putting. I've really got no idea, but it shouldn't really make a lot of difference because there's still plenty of access to the feeders despite that leaf, but I thought that leaving the leaf might make the perch a little bit more attractive. Who knows why they've not landed on that this morning? It's just one of those things, but I still have had some interesting moments this morning. I had that visit from the Buzzard and then the Sparrowhawk that I managed to photograph as well. So it's still been really interesting this morning. I've seen lots of other birds as well. It's just been a little bit disappointing that they haven't used this quite nice perch that I put out for them. So despite the extent that I moaned about the visit from the Sparrowhawk this morning, I still really like this photograph that I got of it when it landed in the tree, because the sunlight is just catching it really nicely. It's got a little bit of shadow over its shoulder and down towards the end of the wings, but it's still a really attractive pose, and I think the fact that it's surrounded by all of the foliage just sets it in its natural environment. And you don't always want absolutely pristine photographs all the time that look like they're taken in a studio. This does feel like it's out in the wild and very natural, so this is my favourite photograph. Thanks a lot for watching that video, and if you did enjoy it, I'll link another one that I filmed from my bird hide just up here. You can do me a really big favour by clicking the like, subscribe and the bell notifications. If you want to leave me any comments, you can check out my Instagram, Vero or Facebook account, but all that's left now is to say stay safe and I'll see you soon.